and I am facing away from my computer. My computer's over there. Hello, hello! If you're new here, I'm Dana, a Midwestern neurodivergent author, and under the name D.L. Pitchford, I publish unapologetically honest stories with real characters. That is probably the best I've gotten through that little plug ever. On my first try today, too. That's impressive. I really wanted to do a goals check-in since it is halfway through the year now. Now, I did not make my original goals video until March because that is when I started posting videos. To be fair, I filmed that video in February, so this is like 5 months after I recorded that and started doing stuff. So I have been wanting to do a mid-year check-in, and then a week or two ago, I saw Tanya do the writer's version of the mid-year freakout tag. This is a tag that was put together by Curious Cat. I will link to her channel and the original video below. The first thing I want to do is a general check-in with all of the goals that I made back in February and March. For writing and publishing, I wanted to try a bunch of different writing routines from famous authors. I have done literally 0 of those. I am planning to do a horror-themed October videos, and I want to do some writing routines of horror writers during that month. I don't know who, I have not decided. Stephen King is, the obvious, but there are a lot of really good, lesser-known horror authors, and I've read one thing by Stephen King, so, not exactly the top of my list. I don't know. This was probably one of the least important goals that I had on my list, so I'm okay if I don't actually hit that mark. The next goal was to finish and publish the final book in my Billy series. During the month of June, I finished the rough draft. This was a messy process because I had to revise about 75,000 words and then finish writing it. So I only added about 10 to 15,000 words, but I also replaced many of the words that were already there. So it was a long, extensive, exhausting process. That draft is done now, and it is resting, and I will get back to it. I doubt very much that I will have this book ready to publish by the end of the year, but it will be well on its way. The amount of progress I have made is already amazing, considering this is a book that I did not work on for 6 or 7 years. I'm happy. It's going well, even if it's slow. The next goal was to finish the rough draft of my Red Riding Hood meets Jack the Ripper horror story. I have 1 chapter done, and that's it. Finishing the draft of my Billy book took so long, and I have not gotten to this, and I was planning to work on that after I finished this other draft, but I was kind of looking at it and going, I've never written horror before, not intentionally so, and I got a little bit intimidated. I think I might want to work on some horror short stories first, especially since that's my next goal, is working on short stories. I have not finished any new short stories, but next week I will be working on a short story though, and it is a horror short story. I signed up for a themed anthology. The theme is dark, which is really vague, so that has been a little bit difficult, but I have a little less than 2 months to finish this, and that's going to be my goal all next week. That is the plan, is to write this short story, make sure it's good enough to send in. So I haven't made a lot of progress on that. I'm behind on most of my writing goals because of how long revising and redoing that draft took. But, oh well. As far as craft and business improvement, I have already met my goals here. I attended the Artist Ink Express workshop in April, and that was a phenomenal experience. I would like to go to another conference or workshop, but I have not really done research or made any decisions on that front. And the other aspect was to join a writing group. Now, about 2 months ago, I joined the Springfield Writers Guild. That's not specifically a writing group, but there are smaller genre groups within it, and I joined the speculative fiction group. And we do writing critiques. We get together monthly, 2 times a month, one virtually and then one in person. It's just been a really good experience. I have not shared any of my writing with them yet, but I also don't don't have any speculative fiction to share with them at this point. Sometime in the future, we'll see. But it has been a really good experience. Everyone is so nice and welcoming. I'm really happy that I made that choice and took that step, and it's going well. As far as social media, I have been, obviously, focusing primarily on YouTube. My main goal there to stay on top of things was to post at least 2 times a month. I have been doing that. For the most part, I've been posting weekly, but I've missed a couple weeks here and there. It hasn't been too bad. I think I missed 2 weeks at the end of June, and that was fine. If you've seen my last video, then you know how crazy everything got and why I missed a couple weeks there. Aside from YouTube, I wanted to choose one other social media platform to focus on. I wasn't sure whether to do Instagram or Blue Sky. I think in general I like Instagram more, and that's what I've leaned toward. That is what I have become most active on, but by active I mean me getting on the app and looking at posts, not me posting, because I've posted once in the last 6 months. I think I need to update this goal so that I have an exact number of times I should be posting regularly, like maybe make the goal posting once a week, and then I pick the day. So maybe I post on Instagram every Monday, and that's it. That seems reasonable. And then if I post again in addition to that, then that's just a bonus. The next section was major purchases for the future. I listed things like a laptop, an ergonomic chair, a vlogging camera, upgrading RAM, and like storage space on my computer. I would also like to upgrade to an ultra-wide monitor, and then getting commercial use art commissions. We upgraded my RAM. It is double what it was before, so that has been a huge help. I did also buy another external, so that's what I'm using for all of my video editing. Like, that's where it goes when I'm done. There are other upgrades I need to make to this computer, though, that I was not fully aware of at the time. I do still need to upgrade the storage, but specifically the storage of the SSD that is in the computer. I also still need to replace my Wi-Fi card, and hopefully that fixes the internet issues that I've been having specifically on the desktop. I also bought a new laptop. I bought a refurbished ThinkPad through Newegg. Getting a laptop for cheap that has good specs is stupidly difficult. I have not gotten a vlogging camera. I don't know when I'll be able to do that because of all the tariff BS. Like, I really wanted the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Because who doesn't? And I've watched a bunch of review videos and stuff. Like, I feel confident that it is a camera that I would be comfortable using and would use regularly. However, because of the tariff stuff, the price skyrocketed and it went up more than it needed to. DJI took advantage of the tariff situation to raise their prices on a well-established, universally loved vlogging camera. They basically went, this is a great opportunity to screw everyone over, so they did. And even with tariffs getting paused, that hasn't changed the price at all. It's hard not to also be mad at DJI in this situation. Anyway, more than likely I will not be getting something like that. I'm more likely to get a camera that I set up here and then still use my phone when I'm on the go. That is probably the most realistic thing, but then I'm getting a nicer, like, sturdier camera, which will be just as expensive as the Pocket is right now. So I don't really have a good solution. The best solution is waiting. Cool. And yeah, as much as I would like an ultra-wide monitor, that's not really something that I expected to be able to get. It's something I really want, but it's not a high priority. So that has definitely not happened. An ergonomic chair to replace this ancient, crappy one is much more important, much higher priority. And then the last thing is the art commissions. Now, in my last video, I mentioned that I actually reached out to a local artist that I'm mutuals with, and he is going to design some vector illustrations that I can use as like stickers and buttons and pins and stuff like that. So that is like one of the things that I really wanted to get commissioned. I still want to get some illustrations that I can use for like bookmarks and postcards and that sort of thing. Also, that's in progress, so I can't even really check that off yet. And then the last section was my personal goals. As far as my reading goals, I wanted to read at least 25 books. I have already hit that. My goal on Goodreads, which I have now switched to Storygraph, so my goal on Storygraph was 30 books, and I broke that in June. I have read so far 34 books this year, which is awesome. I've read a bunch of books that I've been meaning to read for a while, like Carmilla. I finally finished Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is a book I have been trying to read for so long. It is a phenomenal book, absolutely one of my favorites, but it is difficult. It's so dense, it can be hard to focus on when you're struggling to focus. I've spent much of this year trying to retrain my brain to be able to read physical copies of books again, because I haven't been able to, and that is absolutely devastating. I've read a bunch of really good nonfiction books. Many of them were reference books for writing or for future projects. But then I've also read books like How Fascism Works and On Tyranny and, applicable things. I finished Careless People a couple weeks ago and it was phenomenal. I mean, depressing, but really good. I also finally started reading the Witcher series. I am just now on the first novel. I'm like 20% of the way through, but I read the 2 short story anthologies first. It's so good. Another nonfiction book I read was The Power of Habit, and just like from a psychology standpoint, it was absolutely fascinating. I loved learning about how brains work. That's one of the most interesting things. The problem is, my brain doesn't work like that. So it's not really something that I can implement. I really wish one of the chapters talked about how habits work for neurodivergent people, because the way our brains are different severely changes the way our brains can form habits. Or, can't form habits. It was just such an interesting book, though, and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad it was more about the science of it than it was actually self-help. I probably would have DNF'd it if it had been more self-helpy, because it's just self-help books are icky. Oh, and then the most recent book that I finished was The Haunting of Hill House, which is just how has it taken so long for me to read more Shirley Jackson than The Lottery? That's all I ever read before. And that was, we read it in high school. How did it take me so long to read something else by her? I don't know, but it was really good. And I grew up watching The Haunting, the one with Liam Neeson and Catherine Zeta-Jones and Owen Wilson, and then I'm blanking on the actress who plays literally the main character. It's such a silly, cheesy movie, but also, as a child watching this, it was quite scary. But it's really fascinating seeing the beginning of it is almost exactly the same as the book, and then the book ends in a much more, not to be punny or anything, haunting way. I was not expecting the ending because, the movie The Haunting follows a more stereotypical horror storyline. Things go absolutely bonkers, and they have to solve the mystery and, figure out whatever. But I think part of the beauty of the book is that it doesn't get solved. They, spoilers, but they send Eleanor away because she's going crazy. The house loves her and wants to keep her, and so they send her away, and then, she finds a way to stay anyway, which, oof. And no idea what happens after that, because, there isn't much to it after that. They don't solve the mystery, and that actually makes it creepier. Which, to be fair, I feel like people like horror stories where the mystery gets solved, because it's, giving you an opportunity to overcome the horror. And this is more horrifying because it's not overcome. It's not fixed. They don't figure it out. And as someone who also loves the miniseries Rose Red, which is my favorite Stephen King thing, and it's It was a screenplay, it wasn't even a book. So I don't have a book that I can read. Rose Red is very, very loosely based on The Haunting of Hill House, and probably some other things too. I would have to look that up. But it was really cool seeing like where the stones falling came from, and like, because I'm reading this book and it's like, oh, the stones! That wasn't in The Haunting, I don't think. Gosh, I need to rewatch that movie now. It was fascinating, like, piecing everything together and figuring out how things are connected and where stories that I grew up with connect to the source material. And it's just crazy to me that it took me forever to actually read this book. It's so good. And I need to read more Shirley Jackson. So that was a long addendum to talk about all the things I've been reading this year. And then the two other personal goals were working on artwork, which has not happened, like, at all. There's a local painting group that I had wanted to join. I was really excited about this. But with how much time it takes me to do YouTube stuff and the writing and how hectic and stressful this year has been already, I have been too stressed. Even if I physically have time that I could go to these meetings, I've been too stressed to be able to do it. So I've just kind of given up on that goal, and I'm sad about it, but I think it's the right choice. And then the last goal was travel. The main thing here was I wanted me and my family to go on a trip to at least one national park this year. We had been hoping to go on a trip during July. That's definitely not happening now. With everything that has been happening with the storm and the tree falling on our house and all of that stuff, it just did not happen. We do not have the money for even a small trip like that. It's just not possible. We had wanted to go to the Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas, which is a short trip, but we also wanted to stop at Silver Dollar City, either on the way there or the way home. And, you know, that in and of itself is a couple $100 minimum, because there are 4 of us. And, you know, if we want to do anything or buy anything during the trip at all, that's additional money. And we're also not earning money during that time, so it doesn't work. We have to plan around when we're going to get a new roof, all of that stuff. So it's not realistic for us to take a week-long trip like that. Maybe we'll be able to do a shorter one at the beginning of August, but I don't have any expectations for that, because it's just, the stars would have to align perfectly for something like that to happen. And I'm really sad about it, but that's a financial issue that's out of my control, and I can't really do anything about it. I cannot fix it. Anyway, so that is a check-in on all of the goals that I made when I first started this channel. So now we're going to go over Curious Cat's mid-year freakout tag. This will probably take a lot less time than how much I talked about stuff with my check-in. Did you set any writing goals at the beginning of the year? What were they? Are you on track? So I just went over all of my goals. Yes, I set some writing goals. I just talked about this a little bit, but I'm not exactly on track. Revising and finishing that draft took way longer than I expected it to take, which makes sense when you take into account this is the first time I've worked on it in 6 or 7 years. It's also the first long project I've worked on in 6 or 7 years. I should have given myself more grace, and I think in the coming months I need to continue giving myself grace. I am at a good point though. This book will get finished. I really hope I can get it done this year. We'll see. What are you currently working on, and how much writing have you done so far this year? How much writing I've done so far this year is so difficult to figure out. I revised and finished writing a draft that is 88,000 words. I did not, write all of those fresh, but there are so many scenes and sections of scenes that I rewrote. So I did a lot of writing that is not reflected in the numbers. And then as for current projects, I'm actually between big projects right now. And next week I'll actually be working on a short story for an anthology. Have you reached any milestones so far this year? I'm pretty sure that finishing that draft was a pretty big milestone for me. It's the first genuine progress that I have made in a long time. So it didn't feel huge at the time, and in some ways it still doesn't, but I know logically that it is. It was a really big, important step for me to take, even if it feels lackluster. What does your writing routine look like right now? Has it changed since the beginning of the year? Are you happy with it? If not, how do you want it to look like? Part of why I want to test out famous writers' routines is to try to figure out my own. I don't really feel like I have a set routine, and that is especially true right now because it's summer vacation and my kids are here, and the amount of time that I have to do writing and to follow a specific routine are severely limited. I don't really... Is that thunder? I don't really have much of a routine right now. This has been true for a while and it will probably continue to be true. I'm just struggling to fit it in where I can, when I can. My schedule winds up being pretty flexible, so we just kind of fit it in when we can. Have you encountered any good resources about writing? The main one that stands out to me is this book. It is written by the chief copy editor at Random House, Benjamin Dreyer. There are a lot of really good moments in here. I marked a lot of things. Probably one of the best things about this book is how easy it is to understand what he's talking about. It's aimed at fiction writers and it gives a lot of really helpful tips and tricks. If you're an author and you want to know more about copy editing and what copy editors do and how they can help you, this is a really good book to read. Very helpful, highly recommend it. The other book really is Bird by Bird, which I'm still in the middle of reading. I just started this last week, and it's, not so much about craft as it is about a writer's life and lessons from a writer as opposed to about grammar and style and those sort of things. I love it already, and the way that she describes her brain just refusing to behave, I connect with it so much. It's really good. If you haven't read it, you absolutely should. If you write with a playlist, what are your current go-to songs to get into writing mode? I actually have separate playlists for almost every project, at least every big project, so it really depends on what I'm working on. For my Jack the Ripper and Red Riding Hood story, I have a eerie, spooky playlist that I really enjoy, and that has stuff like Starset, Grandson, Billie Eilish, In This Moment, Bastille, Halsey, Aviva. I'm assuming that's how you say that. Florence and the Machine, there's a lot of that on there. And Mumford & Sons. I really like that playlist. But then, for my fantasy western, it's all, western rock. Think Renegade by Styx, or Bad Company, or Cowboy Song by Thin Lizzy, Riding Out the Storm by REO Speedwagon, Wanted, Dead or Alive, Bon Jovi, Desperado, The Eagles, and then, you gotta have some Johnny Cash on there. The vibe I'm going for that is, what's the term for it? When it's intentionally not the correct time. Anachronistic. The vibe I'm going for that project is, I want the theme songs, I want the music to be anachronistic. If you watched the Willow TV show, the end credits have, really cool versions of rock songs and stuff like that. This is a fantasy set in a fantasy world that does not have this kind of thing at all, but it was so much fun and I loved it. What was the toughest moment related to your writing so far this year? It really feels like every moment is the toughest moment sometimes. Revising that draft was so excruciatingly slow and just so frustrating. This year has been tough. This project has been tough, and we're just working through it. We're all just working through it. What is your best memory related to your writing so far this year? I guess it has to be finishing the rough draft of this book that I've been working on for 8 years, technically. What is something important that you've learned or advice for your future self? Take breaks. Don't try to push yourself so hard. Slow down so you don't burn yourself out again. But keep going. This isn't a race. Go as slowly as you need to. Don't stress yourself out so much that you get overwhelmed and burned out again. That's the most important thing. What would you like to accomplish with your writing during the second half of the year? The main thing is I want to get this book ready for publication. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish that in the amount of time I have left, but we're gonna try. Wish me luck. And the last thing is to tag people, which I guess I'm just going to shout out some people who have not done the challenge yet, to my knowledge. These are other AUTHORTUBERS that I'm friends with, or who I want to get to know better, and who I admire. So if I name you, and you don't think we're friends yet, hi, please be my friend. First, B. Hawthorne. They are a queer writer based in the Kansas City area. I am currently beta reading their story, The Rope Salesman, and it's so good, and I can't wait for everybody to be able to read it. I want to be able to talk about it more. Sierra D. Hill, she is working on her debut paranormal novel, and she runs this podcast called Right on the Spot, where authors go on and do an interview, and then they have to brainstorm and come up with the story and write as much as they can in 20 minutes. If you missed me on there, that was absolutely terrifying, but really fun, and you should check out that video if you haven't seen it. Asa Merritt, he is a horror writer based in Mexico City. He has primarily been a screenwriter, but he is working on transitioning into doing fiction writing as well. His channel is really cool, and it's also just really nice to find other horror writers. And he also recently discovered Weird West fiction, which is just so fun. Anyway, definitely check out his channel. It's awesome. And then C.K. Jensen. They are an indie author who is looking to get trad published in the future, like me. They do a lot of queer retellings of classic stories, and they recently published a book called Witch's Blood. Their writing is so good. So you have to check out their books. If you guys want to do the tag, do the tag. If you don't want to do the tag, don't do the tag. Anyway, definitely go check out those AUTHORTUBERS. They're all fantastic. And make sure to check out Curious Cat, who did the original writer's version of this tag. Next week, I'm going to bring you guys along for drafting a short story. Hopefully it goes well. And then after that, I will be going to a boozy book festival in Kansas City, and I'll bring you guys along for that. I'm not sure when that video will be out. Probably not the week right after it, probably the week after that. And I need to get back to writing, so I will leave you guys here. See you next time.